It's no secret Congress isn't winning any popularity contests these days. Americans are fed up with lawmakers who are either focused on the wrong thing or determined to block any serious reforms that would actually get at the root of the problems that we face. And that's why Republicans have been focused not only on legislation that we think has a good chance of jump-starting private sector job creation in this country, but which also has a good shot at actually becoming law. Put another way, since taking back the majority this year, Republicans in the House of Representatives have focused not only on legislation that avoids the economic missteps of the previous 2.5 years of Democratic control, but which also has a good shot of making it through a Democratic-led Senate. You'd never know it from listening to the President, but there's actually been a significant amount of bipartisan work these days. House Republicans have passed bill after bill, many of them with solid bipartisan support, which would help spur private sector job creation and would help get this economy moving again. But the Democrats who've run the Senate for the past 5 years have ignored virtually all of it. Senate Democrats have decided it isn't in the interest of their party for Congress to get anything done right now. They've adopted a strict strategy of inaction. They simply won't take yes for an answer. So the contrast between Republicans who run the House and Democrats who run the Senate couldn't be starker. Since taking over the House this year, House Republicans have searched for areas of common ground and then invited Democrats who run the Senate to take them up, pass them, and send them on down to the President for a signature. And almost every single time, Senate Democrats have said no. House Republicans now count more than 15 pieces of legislation that would help us chart a very different path from the one the President and his Democratic-controlled Congress have charted over the past few years. This is legislation that would unlock America's energy resources, cut back on excessive regulations that are holding back job creation, and enable businesses like Boeing to make their own decisions about how and where to expand. Just last week, the House passed a bill to get rid of an IRS withholding tax on businesses that do work for the government. More than 400 members of the House voted for this bill, including 170 Democrats. Here's how one prominent Democrat described this bill. The repeal of this requirement, he said, will free up small business cash flow, increasing their ability to add jobs and to bid on new projects. Republicans support this legislation. Democrats support this legislation. The President included this legislation in his own jobs bill, and he supports the bill that passed the House last week. There's no reason the Senate shouldn't take it up right now. This is one small thing we can do right now to reduce the burden on employers across the country. We came together to help them earlier this month by passing free trade bills. Let's build on that success and pass this bill that job creators are telling us will help protect and create jobs. Like Senate Democrats, the President may think he benefits from the appearance of inaction in Congress. That's why he's running around the country reminding people how bad the economy is, instead of urging Democrats who run the Senate to work with Republicans who run the House. But, Mr. President, with all due respect, the American people already know the economy is in bad shape. That's not news to anybody. They don't need the President to tell them that. They live it. What they need is for the President to get his party to agree to something that helps. I know that Democrats will argue that our proposals for job creation wouldn't be their first choice. My response is that the Democrats had 3 years to do something about jobs and the economy. The President's signature jobs bill cost nearly $8 trillion. 2.5 years later, there are 1.5 million fewer jobs in this country than on the day that legislation was signed. So why don't we try a different approach? Let's try an approach that actually takes into account the concerns of the struggling business owners who are ultimately going to lift us out of this jobs crisis. They've told us what they want. It's not a mystery what we need to do to help these folks create jobs. temporary fixes and more stimulus bills isn't it. So my message is this. Democrats in Washington need to start taking yes for an answer. Republicans have put forward more than a dozen concrete proposals to spur job creation in this country that avoid the economic mistakes the Democrats made over the past few years. We've done the hard work of legislating and looking for areas where the parties overlap on the issues. It's time for the President to signal to Democrats in Congress it's okay to work with us. Everyone knows the economy is in bad shape. What Republicans are saying is that higher taxes and more government spending isn't the way to help it. Everyone knows the federal government in Washington is spending way too much money it doesn't have. What Republicans are saying is the solution isn't to spend even more. Everyone knows that if the two parties are going to come together and act, you need to design legislation that appeals to both sides. And that's exactly what Republicans are doing. So it's time to put the political playbook aside and actually take action. Republicans in the House are doing their job. It's time for the President and Senate Democrats to do theirs. Mr. President, I yield the floor.